Hello and welcome to this video about pedagogy for transformation and evolution. My name is Harriet Fagerholm and I'm from Finland, working as a co-creative guide, healer, and also as a trained professional teacher.
Hello everyone, my name is Victoria Subirana. I'm from Spain, but I have been working as a teacher in Nepal for 30 years, setting up schools for the marginalized children and their communities.
And this video is about mental awareness, which is a crucial part of the pedagogy for transformation, which Victoria has applied successfully for such a long time.
Yes, I will like to start addressing two core principles, which in my understanding are the focus of undevelopment, misery, and unhappiness in the world. Those two core principles are poverty and ignorance. So now we have many ways to approach ignorance. In my opinion, to get education, even if it's third world education or a rich world education, it might not lead the person to evolve with the evolution to gather the wisdom. So when education is equal to transference of knowledge, when the education is equal to gather information, it is only to serve the outer, the external, the society, the so-called established society demands. And that knowledge, that information is always mental. And when you have a conflict, when you have to do an interaction, when it comes to develop the human virtues and the critical thinking, the logical thinking, if that information and that knowledge have not been transformed into wisdom, then the information has very little value. Now, in my opinion, and according to my analysis and my experience, the only way to transform that information into wisdom is to have the joy and the capacity and the surroundings that allow you the freedom of thinking, so you can apply what you learn in an environment that will protect you from external aggressions. There is where poverty plays a big role, because when you have to be worried about survival skills, you don't have the time, you don't have the joy, you don't have the appropriate arena and the appropriate people to help you transfer that knowledge into wisdom. And because of that, I have created a very important tool for the children in the school and even for adults, if you want to try. After every exposure to a new learning, we should have the key and the capacity to analyze whether what we are learning is just the transference of the information, or that learning will turn into a real wisdom that you can take it with you, and even is so important because that expands the level of consciousness. So you can use that wisdom at the moment of dying. So it is a life and death purpose. And after a session, let's say mathematics or language or history, the teacher will come up with an interview. So the students are ready to receive that, because the mind of the students have been set up to explore and analyze the information given by the outside in relation to how he is receiving that information, and is ready to pay attention to 10 minutes assessment. The first question the teacher will ask in that mental awareness will be, how did you feel while learning this subject? So there we are, being children in a classroom exposed to many different emotions every day. And we have been never asked by our teachers how those emotions help us to cope with the demands of the classroom, with the demands of the curriculum. We have been open up our heads like open jars and pour the water or the wine or Coca-Cola, whatever is there, but we have not been even asked, how did you feel? Did you feel anxious? Did you feel nervous? Did you feel inferiority complex? Did you feel happy? Did you feel in tune? Did you feel cooperative? No. So the first thing is to ask the child, how do you feel? Because our duty, our main important duty, the first one, is to be happy. We have the obligation to look for our happiness and to be happy in the world. Because if you are happy, you emanate that energy, and the tune of everything you do, is upgrading, the quality of work, the quality of thoughts, the quality of words. But if you are unhappy, it is the opposite. Then, if you implant this idea into the mind of the children, since they are small, then you are giving them a very important key, because then you have to, the next stage, give them the tools. So if there is a negative thought, how can I transfer this into a positive thought? If there is a negative word, I catch myself telling that, how can I transfer this word into a positive one? If you do a negative action, you have to give him the possibility to explore, to feel, the status of his emotion. And then the mind has to change the pattern and turn it. So it's not easy. The second thing that the teacher will ask, did you manage to keep your attention intact? For how long did you keep your attention intact? Because in many occasions, the teacher is demanding a level of attention that the child is not being prepared for. A quantity of silence and attention that you have not been prepared to keep silence and to keep attention, but you are being demanded to cope with that situation where the child even does not have the capacity to remain 40 minutes, 1 hour, keeping the attention. So if you give the child this opportunity, he will explore the possibilities and will explore the mind, how the mind works. The other one, have you been distracted by something? If yes, please, could you specify? Then he will be, I have been distracted. Why? Because then if you ask for that, when the child stands at the end of the 40-minute session or one hour session of mathematics or language, and you ask, so were you able to cope? No, because instead of thinking about the, photosynthesis of plants, I was thinking that this coming Monday is my birthday, and that my interest is going there and I'm unable to focus on that. Then the teacher will know that not all the children in the class have the same interest and the same this motivation for what she or he is pretending. And the opposite is also there. The child that will stand up and say, well, yesterday my grandmother passed away and I'm feeling so sad. In my house there is the funeral rituals. My mother was crying. I have never seen my father crying that way, this and that. Then today that thought was emerging, that thought was intensive, and it was more powerful than the class that is going on. Then you are giving the child the opportunity to analyze why and when the distractions happen and what is the focus of the mind, the silent mind inside. And then, moreover, the teacher will appreciate in such a way that discovery that the child has two possibilities. When he will be asked, what did you learn? He can answer, I learned about the photosynthesis of the plants. Or he can say, I learned about myself, that I am vulnerable to this feeling, these emotions, that words, whatever we bring back to our the school, we bring back to our office, we bring back to our home, all this pollution in our minds that affect our surroundings because we have not been taught to be focused and to analyze. What is there that is does not enable me to get in contact with the real situation around me. Then another one which is very powerful. Then the teacher will ask, how did you learn? Mm-hmm. If you ask a child 5 times a day, 7 times a day, how do you learn? No longer the child is dependent on a teacher to learn whatsoever, because he is analyzing. She will go backwards analyzing. Before I was ignorant of that, and now after following this process, after listening to my peers, after reading that book, after having to underline that words, after having to expose and come across to difficulties of expression, I learned this and that and those other things. Then you are giving again the child the key to his own freedom. It doesn't matter who is there in the classroom, the teacher, or even if Mickey Mouse is there, it doesn't matter. He will be there doing his own learning process. So he will be aware of the difficulties, and the teacher have to very soon acknowledge that she has to be very well prepared also to display a variety of different methods of learning, because not every child learns from the same method, from the same technique, and not every child learns the same thing at the same time. We have to be patient and give the time and the space and the different tools if we want to create the so-called democratic schools. Then we first have to be democratic with our teaching techniques. Then finally, the most important question to this mental awareness is, how are you going to use these teachings? Oh, there the teacher is fainted, because if what are you teaching for an hour have no use, no impact, no a direct connection to the children's life, forget it. Quit, go and sell tomatoes in the streets. Do not become a teacher, because the teacher has to connect with the real use of the children, because children, thank God, are not schizophrenic. Children, thank God, they have a healthy mind, and they are going there with their full innocence, their vitality, the passion for learning. And what we do with teachers, we just teach nonsense things that do not apply to the maturity or according to their cognitive development. Teachers that are, contents that are nonsense, that they never implement when they go back home, things that they don't understand, and they are there just receiving everything, but with no relation so far to the praxis or to a practical level. So when a child cannot implement and cannot make 2 and 2, those 2 plus 2, 4, when that mathematical operation does not, relate to the life of the child, you are castrating, the curiosity of the child, the motivation of the child, and you are making a dependent mind that is always accepting and obeying what the teacher will impose, what the government will impose. So are we creating free thinkers or slaves? Finally, the last one, if you did not learn and you feel that this is important for you, how are you going to learn that? This key course, the principles of this mental awareness, I think Harriet, being an adult and working with adults in a complete different setting, I believe she has a lot to add to this, method of teaching, because I am sure her clients, when they go there, they are lacking many of the skills, which are the core of this exercise. What do you think, Harriet?
Oh yes, while listening to you, thinking about what this kind of practice would have done during all those years of education, that somebody would have asked you that, why didn't you learn? What about your motivation? How does this teaching feel? This puts a lot of pressure on the teacher also, because I have had also many unmotivated teachers, and I have, been very, very affected by them, because the passion you talk about, the passion for learning. So if the teacher is not passionate about their own work, it will affect the students. And these questions, what you're saying about the mental awareness, that we all have to work on our ways of relating to the subjects, to the learning, to each other, and to everything what goes on in our lives. Because what you also described is that when things happen in our private lives, we bring them with us to school, to our work. We are not separate, educating selves and work selves, and then we go our private selves. Everything is happening inside us, and the mental awareness can really help us to categorize also, and how can I regain my focus, the attention, and what happens to me if I'm not focused in my work? And what about the creative thinking? What does the creative thinking need? So instead of just receiving knowledge and trying to figure out how can I apply this knowledge, that is where the creative thinking comes in, and where you also have to dare to put yourself into the situation. Maybe I have not understood this at all. Maybe I have not learned this yet, and that's okay. But I try to see how can this be implemented. I have seen that with adults who are taking a lot of trainings, whether to be a coach or whether to be a therapist or this and that. There are so many trainings, adult education out there, and people are eager to learn, which is wonderful. But the practical implementation, that they start to really do that work and go into a professional development, taking years of practice, that requires that you know the principles of learning, that you have to reflect on your own ability to learn, and also to receive the feedback, whether that is from the client or from somebody else, to see, does my teaching work in practice? Can I transfer my knowledge to others, and so that it can be helpful and useful? This is all about the practice of the mental awareness, and there is a huge potential here for us adults also to learn these skills and apply them in workplaces, especially for leaders, to modify these questions, to stop in the teams, to reflect on how motivated are we, how do you feel about your work? Listening to many people nowadays about modern work life, they run from meetings to meetings where they feel nothing is accomplished, and they are not motivated. They are sitting there listening and receiving all kinds of input. But do we stop and try to understand, maybe we don't even have a common shared understanding of the same concept we are working with? What does this mean for you? That is what I learned in the collaborative learning community I co-created with my colleagues at the University of Applied Sciences. That when collaborative learning is done in small groups and we start to discuss and share. So how do you understand wisdom, Victoria? How do I understand wisdom? What does wisdom mean for you? We have to establish the shared understanding. Then we can start working on it together. And it's okay to understand things differently. It means that we approach them from different perspectives. And because we have been taught differently in school, and maybe we have not been taught at all to reflect and argue about our understanding. So there is a clear need on all levels of education for more collaborative learning methods and the mental awareness tools to reflect on what is it really going on in my mind, and where is my real motivation. And if I don't want to learn this, then okay, what do I want to learn then?
Exactly. Thank you so much. You are so precious.
Thank you, Victoria, for sharing all your wisdom. And thank you for being with us in this video series. Bye.